Welcome to the Vitamin Professor podcast, brought to you by VRM Media, publisher of Vitamin Retailer and Nutrition Industry Executive magazines, in partnership with Nutraland USA. I'm your host, Dr. Gene Bruno, Professor Emeritus of Nutraceutical Science and Chief Scientific Officer of Nutraland USA. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to help educate the dietary supplement industry about the science of nutraceuticals and other relevant topics. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Christopher Bailey serves as GENCOR's Director of Scientific Affairs. After earning his doctorate in exercise physiology at the University of Miami, Christopher accumulated experience in the dietary supplement industry in several areas by working with direct-to-consumer brands as well as raw material manufacturing and distribution companies in both regulatory and scientific affairs. Christopher now translates data on GENCOR's latest ingredients into content to be shared and used by product formulators, marketing people, brand teams for dietary supplements, functional foods, and personal care products. Today, Dr. Bailey is going to talk to us about three of GENCOR's evidence-based ingredients: Tripti, Levagen Plus, and Libifem. And since he and I have known each other for a while and are on a first-name basis, I'm just going to say, welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Gene.
Oh, listen, it's great. And, you know, it's funny. Chris and I seem to keep coming across each other in different places. I mean, years back, you know, he would actually come to see me with other guys when I worked for another company. We'd go out to lunch. And then just back from VitaFoods in May in Barcelona, I'm getting off the plane, and there's Chris. We're both waiting to get off. He's like, "Hey, Gene." We had a nice little chat. And so it's nice to get back together with him again on this podcast. So let's just start. I know that GENCOR has launched a new ingredient. Tell me about that. Is it you know, the Tripti? Is it a GLP-1 focused, or what can you tell me about it? And where does it come from?
Absolutely happy to share. So Tripti is a combination of OEA with
Yeah.
a novel excipient platform, Lipisperse.
Yes.
And OEA is a fatty acid amide naturally found in the body that your body produces in response to eating food, and it helps to control your body's food intake so that when you have a meal that you have just what you need and not any more and not any less. And then the excipient platform, Lipisperse, we'll get into more, but has had a great deal of success in improving the absorption and functional formulation properties of things like curcuminoids, resveratrol,
Oh,
and then also the other one that is escaping me, palmitoyl ethanolamide, or PEA.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let me ask, is there clinical research on OEA? Can you tell me a little bit about that, and you know, and subsequently what GENCOR's doing research-wise in that regard? Let's start with just sort
Yeah,
of regular research that exists.
absolutely. So what sets it apart, the OEA that we have first and foremost, is that we have graphs, or generally recognized as safe,
No, that's big.
as a
Yeah.
self-affirmed process through an independent toxicology panel, which reviewed the data on our OEA to affirm that yes, it is indeed safe for use in dietary supplements and functional foods.
And,
And
and
as far as
I want to
clinical
just comment
trials,
on something on that, because that's
sure.
a lot more important than I think a lot of people realize. In our industry, as you well know, Chris, uh, new ingredients come out all the time, and you know, excitement is generated over them, and raw material companies want to sell them, and brands want to bring them into their products because, you know, there's excitement. And the problem is that, you know, there's only three ways in which an ingredient is lawful to be a dietary ingredient and a dietary supplement. It's either got an NDI number, it's either got GRAS, or it's an ODI, an old dietary ingredient in the marketplace prior to 1994. And of course, that doesn't have applicability to new ingredients. So the fact that you've got the GRAS, that means that when people are interested in this and want to bring it into their line, they can do so with confidence, knowing that it's a lawful dietary ingredient. I just want to make that point because a lot of people don't realize the importance of that. So
But part of what we do at GenCor is doing our homework to prepare these ingredients for getting into that commercial sale process very quickly, rather than, oh, we'll figure it out someday
yeah,
when
right.
someone big enough is ready to buy it. We're doing it right out of the gate so that customers, as you said, have that confidence in formulating into their products. And there is some research out there on OEA that I wanted to share some
Please.
highlights from. And the research that I'm going to share is on 250 milligrams of OEA. And the dose of our Tripti product is 300 milligrams, which is a combination of 250 milligrams of the OEA material and 50 milligrams of the lipasperse excipient. So with that combination, that's where the 300 is. But with just 250 milligrams of OEA, what we're able to see is reductions in body weight, fat mass, waist circumference, body mass index, or BMI, as most people call it. And we'll get deeper into the mechanisms a little bit later in the podcast, but just high level, what helps to explain some of those changes in that same study, they also measured self-reported changes in dietary habits and found that
Yeah,
people had reduced hunger, increased fullness, and a reduction in the desire to eat sweet foods, which
that's
is
a
a big one
big
for me because
deal.
I have a major sweet tooth. So,
Well, and of course, the sweet, the sugar is sort of the number one culprit from a dietary standpoint. If you're trying to lose weight or maintain your current weight, there's nothing that'll put it on you like eating a lot of sugar and refined carbohydrates. So anything you can do to help reduce that. And it was funny, some years ago, I was doing a little mini study in house at a company I worked for. We were looking at a OEA material, and I just had a number, it's just a little open label study with just some of the employees to see how it worked. And, had them weigh themselves, had them fill out some questionnaires. And, we saw exactly the same things you're talking about. We saw that people had some reduction in appetite, particularly sweet tooth reduction, and lost some weight. So just back when it was, before it was a big deal, I saw that this was. So I've had my eye on this as a very interesting ingredient. And a quick question for you: is this related to GLP-1 in any way, shape, or form, or not?
that's a great question. So there is benefits of OEA as it relates to GLP-1, and we have a small human pilot study on Tripti demonstrating that supplementation with Tripti will result in an acute increase in GLP-1. And GLP-1 plays a major role in controlling appetite and providing a sense of fullness to support weight management. And it's good that you bring that up because looking at data from Google Trends that I love to use for various things, both professionally and just understanding what's the interest in certain products that I want to buy, is that you can look at search by state, country, or globally of certain search terms. And the term GLP-1 in the past year has just skyrocketed
It's not a
in the amount of
surprise.
searches related to it. So it's very timely that we're able to have this ingredient ready and that there is a benefit specifically related to GLP-1 so we can help catch some of that consumer demand that we're seeing in the marketplace.
Very, very cool. So you mentioned that you did this one study here. Do you have any other research going on with your Tripti material or plan to go on?
Yeah, so Dr. Amanda Rao, who is the founder of a company called RDC Global, they're a contract research organization in Australia. They recently conducted a study looking at the microbiome benefits of Tripti and found that Tripti was able to provide these favorable changes in Akkermansia specifically, which you might have heard of,
Yes,
and that plays a big role in metabolic health as well. So we're
does.
excited to see that, and that was presented at Probiota recently by her, I believe in Vancouver, Canada. And I'm sure we'll have more presentations and updates on the microbiome space because we do see a big demand for that. And while high level, we're talking about Tripti for overall weight management and metabolic health, certainly consumers are interested in addressing it through the gut microbiome. So that's something that we'll continue
No,
to
that's very
explore.
cool and very interesting too, because I've read some data on Akkermansia uh, that also showed a relationship to GLP-1. So it's kind of interesting that the Tripti itself um, had this positive impact on Akkermansia or AKK, and and it's kind of cool that mechanistically we're looking at an impact on the gut. Today the microbiome is just, I mean, anything uh, biotic, seems to be buzzwords that are growing at leaps and bounds, whether it's probiotic, prebiotic, postbiotic, and we're finding new materials that seem to have like prebiotic effects that you wouldn't think of. It's standard ones like fructooligosaccharides or inulin or something, but then you're seeing polyphenols and other materials. And I don't know if Tripti is having a prebiotic effect or it's some other mechanism that's helping to modulate the gut. But it's cool to see that it is a something that does help modulate the gut microbiome. That's just growing and growing as an area of interest. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so how is it unique? What's unique about Tripti regarding? Okay, we talked about mechanism of action, so we got that, and you mentioned lipasperse, and so tell me about that and any other thing that you think is particularly unique.
Yeah, so with weight management products, what I would say historically, a lot of them have been thermogenics, where they're trying to elevate your metabolic rate, and often that comes with kind of a warming sensation. It might be a stimulant ingredient. As far as appetite control, which is something we're excited about with Tripti, the conventional approach has been give people a bunch of fiber, and when they consume that fiber and drink water, it expands and it gives them a lot of fullness, which is a very basic mechanism, but it does work. And so to date, there hasn't been something to really address this pathway, which is through this activation of PPAR alpha, and that helps to both promote lipolysis or the burning of fat, but also to curb appetite. So we
Yeah.
have that mechanism, and then we have, as you mentioned, the GLP-1. And what differentiates it in the OEA space specifically is, as you mentioned, lipasperse technology, and that's from Pharmaco Biotechnologies, which is a partner of ours in Australia. And what they do is apply these food safe and food grade excipients to the molecule, and it helps to reduce particle aggregation, so it helps to reduce clumping, at the same time it helps reduce the surface tension of the particle to allow water to better adhere to it. So it's not water dispersible, but it is, or sorry, it's not water soluble, but it is
Is
cold water
dispersible.
dispersible.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds
And
like it would be. Yeah.
so it kind of looks like a snow globe. It's these white, off-white particles. So they won't disappear, but it's really easily mixable for things like stick packs. And so that helps to promote absorption, which we've seen with our Levagen Plus, our PEA, our Verisperse, which is our resveratrol, our Hydrocurc, which is our turmeric extract that's been enhanced. And all of those have benefited from the improved absorption and the functionality for formulation. So we've seen some really cool product concepts
Uh,
surrounding those ingredients.
so speaking of product concepts and formulation, I've been formulating dietary supplements for decades, and when I do so, and I've also taught at conferences, seminars about formulation. And one of the things I always tell people is if you're trying to create a product, um, don't be too redundant in ingredients with exactly the same mechanism of action. Look for ingredients with different mechanism of action to combine together. And it seems to me that with a material like Tripti and its kind of unique mechanisms, there's opportunities there to formulate it with other products for weight loss and weight maintenance. Would you agree?
Yeah, I've worked with things like Grains of Paradise, which has 6-paradol, and that has that thermogenic effect. But then you also have more stimulant ingredients. So I think there is a lot of ingredients that can be complementary to using with Tripti, and certainly something that I would hope to see in the future, that companies like Radical Science are great at providing low cost solutions and research, but uh, brands that do clinical trials on the entire combination of ingredients in the formula. So I think one of those, and I could be wrong, maybe you know them, but Seed Health does things for digestive health, and they clinically study the entire formula rather than independent ingredients.
It's nice when that happens. Yeah, yeah. That and is there any kind of limitation, like if somebody wants to formulate, it's is it best used in a capsule or a tablet or a powder or a liquid or a gummy or a whatever? Is there any particular forms, delivery forms that you think it's best suited for?
Yeah, so it has a little bit of a lower melting point than our other fatty acid amide, PEA or Levagen Plus. So it might not be best for gummies depending
Mm-hmm.
on the temperature of the gummy process, but it is great for your capsules, tablets, soft gels. You can also use it in stick packs or ready to mix powders. So
Nice.
I could see it in a greens powder, maybe where you're getting some of your micronutrients and you're getting if you're using a certified kind of equivalent to your daily serving of fruits and vegetables, and then you're getting Tripti to help promote satiety and not overeat. So I think that could be a great approach. I could also see it in sports nutrition, where even though you don't need to take it pre-workout, I could see someone combining it with other ingredients that you would put into a pre-workout product, like caffeine, or some of the other great alternatives, paraxanthine, T-crin.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a lot of options both in the healthy lifestyle, but also in the sports nutrition space.
Cool. Well, I think Tripty sounds like a winner. Um, and there's a product that I'm formulating, and I'm just thinking about that now. I think maybe I'll have to call you back and get some more information on that for a product I'm developing for somebody.
That'd be great. Yeah,
Okay,
keep me
so
posted.
let's switch gears a little bit. All right, so you got some research on another one of your flagship ingredients, the Levagen Plus. Okay, so what exactly is Levagen Plus? Let's start there.
Yeah, so Levagen Plus is a combination of palmitoyl ethanolamide, or PEA for short, and the lipasperse technology that we also use in Tripti and Hydrocurc and a lot of other ingredients from Pharmaco. And palmitoyl ethanolamide is something naturally found in things like soy, egg yolk in particular. So it's a dietary ingredient, but it's also something naturally produced by your body that basically is a response to harmful external environmental stimuli. So it helps to provide relief from bodily discomfort and support a balanced inflammatory response. So what we're doing is supplementing with more of it to promote benefits along those lines. So we have a whole host of clinical trials benefits, and I would say the most common dose among those studies is 350 milligrams.
And something that I thought was interesting, just because you don't see it as much as I understand, you have some research on this regarding menstrual discomfort, and so something that the menstrual cycle is a normal thing that happens in all women, and some tend to have more discomfort or less discomfort, which is natural for them. Uh, my wife was lucky enough uh, back in those days not to have a whole lot. My sisters were very unlucky in that they all had pretty significant menstrual discomfort. And so I've been always quite interested to see what is there out there. And short of like Chaseberry, which had some reasonable research on it for different aspects of the menstrual cycle, I hadn't seen a whole lot that was really evidence based. Uh, but you have some evidence on this. Can you talk to me a little bit about that study?
Yeah, so the reason we did the study was because we already had clinical evidence for providing relief from joint discomfort. We also had it for nerve discomfort as well, which is a popular line for healthy aging supplements.
Sure.
And then we also saw it for head discomfort. So that's a clinical trial on headache, another clinical trial on migraines.
Hmm.
And the combination of all those led us to believe that it was going to work for other forms of bodily discomfort. So in women, we looked at it specifically for mental discomfort, as you said. And the unique thing about it is it wasn't just where we have people take 350 milligrams every single day for weeks at a time, like you would with most conventional dietary supplement studies, but
Sure.
it was really just acute administration at the onset of a menstrual
Oh,
discomfort
so it was like an
episode.
as needed. It was, in essence, you didn't have to take it all the time. You could say, "I'm starting my menstrual cycle. I could start that," and they still got results.
Absolutely. So what we saw was that just with that one dose, they were able to, in comparison to placebo, provide or achieve acute relief. And if
Wow.
they needed to, they could take a second dose at 2 hours and continue to receive those benefits.
Wow.
And the nice thing is, where I imagine it being is, you go into Hudson News or other kind of convenience stores in the airport or other places like a bus station or a train, and a woman has an episode of menstrual discomfort, and they can just buy a single dose or a pack that has 4 or 5 doses, like you see with melatonin gummies or products for stress that
Yeah, yeah.
contain L-theanine, for example, and not have to buy an entire month supply when maybe this only happens every once in a while and not every time they have their menstrual cycle. So it makes it more economical and more flexible, where I could see it in, little kind of travel canisters or maybe tablets that come in a Pez dispenser type thing. There's a lot of different formats that lend itself to just 4 or 5 doses rather than having, consumer buy a giant container like you have with your fish oil and whatnot.
So this is fascinating to me. I mean, listen, there's a lot of different kinds of aches and pains that occur in a healthy population. A person doesn't have to have a disease state to have aches and pains, which are a normal part of life. Um, and it's quite interesting that something like Levagen Plus can address a number of different of these areas. But again, I'm very impressed by seeing the application for menstrual discomfort, because I just think for way too long there's been so little offered in our industry that's been very effective, at least that I've been aware of. So kudos to you guys for coming up with having that thought process of, hey, if it's good for this, maybe it's also good for and pursuing that. So yeah, I think that's kind of a crucial gap that you guys have helped to fill now. And so with regard to that whole category of women's health, is Levagen Plus kind of the only thing that you're doing for that? Or are there other areas of women's health, other nutraceuticals that you're looking at for for that application, or women's health application in general?
Yeah, so for women's health as a whole, we do have quite a few ingredients, and then I'll get more specific where we've really addressed some much needed research. And so we have products like Genopause, which is a blend of Ayurvedic herbs for addressing menopausal symptoms,
Nice.
improving menopausal quality of life. We have HMR lignin
Sure.
from Linnea, which is a spruce knot extract that provides relief from hot flashes.
Yeah.
And then we have our flagship product, I like to say, definitely one of our most successful products is Libifem, which is the fenugreek seed extract. And you might also see on our website Testofen, which is the same product but marketed towards men, that has clinical trials for hormonal support in men and improving lean mass as well as strength. And in the clinical trials for Libifem, we really get more specific into menopause symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats, uh, sexual health, so that's sexual frequency in menstruating women. And then where we really saw a big gap, and I wanted to cover today, is related to sports performance and healthy lifestyle. So with ingredients like creatine, caffeine, beta alanine, one report suggested there's about 8 times fewer studies done exclusively in women compared to
Oh yeah.
studies on men. So historically, when someone wants to launch a sports nutrition brand for women, they're just making the assumption, well, it did this stuff in
Yeah. If it
college
worked
age
for
men.
guys, it must do the same for women.
Yeah. And then they might change the bottle to be pink instead of black or red.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
they consider that to be enough to cater to women. And what we've seen is that's really not
No,
enough. And
stop.
the bar has definitely been raised in the last few years, where they want to see research that's specific to the population that is buying it. And especially when you go into big retailers, they have higher substantiation standards than a decade ago,
Oh,
where
for
that just
sure.
doesn't cut it.
No, it doesn't. And I got to tell you, some of the ingredients that you've just mentioned, I have personally formulated with over the years, including Libifem. Um, I formulated with that one as well, because being that it does have uh, good research on it for helping with women's sexual health. Um, and there's not a whole lot out there. It's just a few things that really have that kind of data. It was one that was great to use in those kinds of formulations. Um, HMR lignin, all of those are ones that I've formulated with as well, and testofen and so forth. In any case, so tell us a little bit more about Libifem and its mechanism of action. I love to talk about mechanism of action.
Yep. So it's standardized to these furanol saponins, and what they help do is to free up sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen, from being bound to albumin, so they're more bioactive. And so the clinical trials in men saw improvements in free testosterone, and then we saw in women in the sexual health study improvements in free testosterone as well as estradiol.
Mm-hmm.
And so those help to support sexual health, but then that led us to believe if it's promoting improved libido, what's stopping, these hormonal benefits from also improving sports nutrition related benefits, so body
Sure.
composition and strength. So the clinical trial on women was a combination of resistance training and Libifem at 600 milligrams per day. And what we found was that there was a significant improvement in lean mass, a reduction in total fat mass, and more specifically, when you looked at regional analysis of body composition, there was a reduction in trunk fat mass and an
Mm.
increase in lean mass in the legs. So we were able to get more granular with it, but as a whole, we can say, with confidence that there's improved body composition with supplementation and with Libifem in combination with a resistance training program. And yeah, as I mentioned, to date, there just hasn't been a lot of research in women with exercise training, and almost all of it is done on collegia-aged males. So
Yeah.
we're excited to begin to change that up, although we certainly need to keep doing research and help to narrow that gap.
And it's interesting too because times have changed so much. I've been in the industry 46 years, and I've been around when I was with a company that probably introduced the first sexual health support product for women, and this was a few decades ago, and it failed miserably, not because it didn't work, but because that was a time when women who are baby boomers in my age group, they didn't want to even think about the fact that that might be something they would consider using. Men, sure, but not women. And so they didn't even nowadays it's changed, and women are more like, heck yeah, whatever it is that I need, there's no shame, there's no issue with that. And I see it now changing for the better in all different areas, sexual health, sports, just all over the board. And it's really cool. You guys seem to be, in many ways, the one-stop shop for women's health nutraceuticals. And so, yeah, so that's pretty cool. And I have to give you guys credit too, because you had that whole testofen research in men, and some bright person there said, "Wait a minute, this should have application for women," and started doing that. And then you had a rebranding for Libifem, and it has all these different applications. And I'm really glad you did the the sports, sort of that sports nutrition angle. I think that's a very, very powerful one. And I agree with you. It needs to be something like that. You can't just say, well, if it worked in college age men, it's going to have the same effects on women. It may not. You don't know. And so it's great
Yeah.
that you guys are doing that. I'm very pleased to see that. What other benefits for women's health does Libifem have?
Yeah, so it helps to address hot flashes and night sweats in menopausal women,
Yeah,
and that's another big category too. What we're seeing is, I forgot the exact name of it, so I don't want to butcher it, but there's a initiative, company that's providing these certifications for finished products,
yeah,
that they're menopause friendly, or they are especially considering menopausal women, because we're finding that conversation is becoming more normalized. And when
it
a
should.
woman goes
Yeah,
into the store, it's great that they know a product is specifically indicated for menopausal women, or maybe it helps to address some of the symptoms. So it can apply to a broad variety of products rather than just dietary supplements. It could be maybe a cooling mattress that helps to address night sweats.
Yeah.
It could be a piece of clothing that's more breathable and heat friendly for when they have night sweats. But for dietary supplements specifically, it's great that we have that research to give them the peace of mind that hey, there's going to be improvements in these symptoms, and it's really exciting for menopause because it is a natural state. So there's really a lot more that we can talk about from a dietary supplement standpoint than with a lot of other health benefit categories. So the research was looking at the overall menopausal symptoms, but then those reported number of hot flashes and night sweats. And for a lot of other health categories, I don't think in the US at least we can talk about them as freely as we would like to.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, listen. You know, hot flashes, night sweats. There was a whole case back many years ago where the FDA lost the case in court. They were trying to present menopause as any claims made about it as a disease claims. It's like it's not a disease; it's a life process, and they lost.
Yep.
And ever since then, we've been able to make the claims about that. I think there's other areas where it should be the same, but isn't yet, if it ever will be. Prostate health is one of those things where we have to say prostate health. We can't say BPH, even though the vast majority of men, as they age, with each decade of life, are more likely to develop some aspect of that. And so it's just kind of a natural
Absolutely.
process. But be that as it may, so it's interesting. You have things like Libifem. You can combine with HMR lignin together in a product if somebody wanted to do something special for menopause and have, again, kind of a double whammy there with regard to nutraceuticals that'll help address those symptoms. And then you have things like the Levagen Plus and the Libifem that could also be used together by women of menstruating age for a variety of different purposes. That's pretty cool. So let me ask you, with regard to, again, formats, delivery formats, what kind of delivery formats is Libifem going to work in? And are there taste considerations that need to be considered when if you're doing something like a powder or whatever? So address that for a moment. Tablets, capsules, powders, whatever.
Yeah, so it is an herbal extract, so there is going to be a characteristic taste and odor. The great thing about fenugreek, though, is that it has a very similar aroma to maple syrup.
Yeah.
So I think it would go great into products that naturally have an earthy taste, or maybe it could be combined with maca root for sexual health, and in a chocolate powder like a cocoa, or
Mm-hmm.
it could be in a protein powder. We have a taste mask version that helps address some of the taste challenges. But I
Oh,
definitely
cool.
think there's kind of complementary flavors. I might not put it into a lemonade product, given that it's going to
Yeah.
be maple syrup and it's not water soluble. But yeah, into a protein powder, or kind of a multi-ingredient mix. Maybe it has some cacao powder in there, or
Yeah.
it's blended with cacao nibs in a smoothie. All those things could be complementary to it. And what we hope to keep doing is develop those applications further. And so at Supply Side West, coming up in the fall, it, it it gets faster every year. It feels like we're already back to planning for it,
Yeah.
but we're hoping to have some more prototypes of applications of delivery formats for Libifem and a lot of our other
Listen,
ingredients.
give me a call. I got a great chocolate one for you, delivery form for that I think would go perfect with. I know a CM that does that. That's fantastic. So,
We'd love that. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
be in touch with you on that.
yeah. And I'll be in touch with you as well. So, very cool. Um, Man, you guys have some pretty cool new research on some of these ingredients. Um, and what's nice, I like to see new ingredients with new research, but I like to see old ingredients with new research too. So that's why, something like Tripti that's new and new science, that's fantastic. But then you come around with, and I have Libifem, which you've had for a while, but now you've got some new data on it that you didn't have before. And again, in the Levagen Plus, just some really cool stuff. And two out of three of them are specifically for women, and the third one could be for women or men. So that's pretty nice. Any other thoughts on any of the stuff that we talked about that you wanted to mention but didn't get a chance to mention, or do you feel like you've covered what you wanted to?
I would say just one thing to highlight too on Levagen Plus is that we have Levagen gummies and they taste great. So we have some samples
Oh,
available in the warehouse. You can always use it with your own gummy manufacturer, but our sales team has linked up with some great ones in this past year, attending some of these food-related shows like IFT and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, yeah.
So I encourage people to reach out and get samples of these products in the delivery formats that we have available. But I also don't want to limit the ideas that people come up with. If you think there's a potential for a Libifem pancake, give us a call.
Right.
We're not gonna say no to letting you try that. So
Very good. Is there a phone number or email address that they should send inquiries to that you?
yeah, so they could either do info@gencorpacific.com.
Okay.
The other option is to go through our website and we have a phone number on there as well for our
Okay.
Austin, Texas office, which is where I'm based. But if you're in
Cool.
other countries, we can always redirect that to our sales teams in India or Hong Kong.
Excellent. Very good. Well, listen, Chris, man, thank you. This has been like pretty fascinating stuff. And I love talking to science guys and gals about science. Uh, and you have got some pretty cool science on your materials, and some pretty cool materials. So I appreciate your time and joining us today. And I also, just for those of you listening, again, Chris gave you a good way to go ahead and info@gencorpacific.com if you want to get more information. And if you liked what you heard and you saw, please like and subscribe to the Vitamin Professor. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Chris, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.